this time it is 9:34 a.m. We are reconvening back into open session. No action was taken in executive session. At this time, do we have any motions or discussion referencing the items that were discussed in executive session?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve a settlement agreement and release, agreed motion to dismiss, and agreed order of dismissal between Ronald Schmidt and the town of Argyle upon the terms stated in said documents, payment to Ronald Schmidt's attorney of $5,000 for attorney's fees, and authorize the mayor to execute the stated settlement agreements and documents.
Mayor, I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item?
Does this also approve the TML payout, even though it's not stated?
Yes, it would be a part of that.
Okay,
That's part of the compromise settlement agreement.
okay.
Yes, that would be part of that.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask that Mr. Jeffrey, the attorney representing the town of Argyle, provide a summary of the settlement.
Mr. Jeffries, are you comfortable doing that?
Yes.
Let's get your mic on.
If the settlement is approved by the council motion, the first feature of the settlement would be upon the compromise settlement agreement and release becoming effective, the town of Argyle acknowledges that suspending Ronald Schmidt was improper under the circumstances and the ordinance then existing. The second feature would be a total payment to Schmidt of $30,000, which he represents is his attorney's fees, with $5,000 coming from the city's self-insurance risk pool administrator. The Texas Municipal League Intergovernmental Risk Pool would pay $25,000, and the town is being asked to contribute $5,000. Mr. Schmidt and the town would be the only settling parties. The town and Schmidt would exchange full releases as to each other for the claims asserted in the lawsuit or directly arising from the lawsuit, which was Schmidt's challenge to the ordinance and to the sanction that was imposed against him. The individual defendants are, if they choose, allowed to stipulate to dismissal of the claims between Mr. Schmidt and the individuals, but that's not required, and it does not affect whether or not the settlement becomes effective for the town.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-1. All right, we move on to item number 2.
Mr. Mayor, I propose a motion to authorize payment of $900 to Robert Hager if there's a mutual release of claims between Hager and the town, its officials, employees, and agents to be approved by the town attorney, and authorizing the mayor to execute the mutual release of claims upon the town's attorney's approval.
I second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have discussion on this motion, this item? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries unanimously. And then we move on to agenda item E1. Discuss and consider Article 1.60 Code of Ethics, Chapter 1, General Provisions of the Town of Argyle Code of Ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve an ordinance repealing Article 1.06 Code of Ethics, Chapter 1, General Provisions of the Town's Code of Ordinances.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on that item?
Yes, we do. This is a redundant ordinance, and repealing this ordinance puts us in conformance with other towns across Texas. The general law provisions of the Texas Code provide for more than adequate protection against ethics issues on the part of officials and staff of the town.
Anyone else? second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is unanimous. Do we have any further statements on anything that we've gone over today? Prior to adjourning, I would like to go ahead and read the statement that I've prepared, reference this whole thing to kind of clear some things up for the citizens and kind of explain some of this. We have been under legal constraints, what we can and cannot say throughout this whole process. As the mayor of this town, I want to take time for clarification to the citizens what has transpired over the last 9 months in our town. I know there's a lot of questions and a lot of misconceptions and a lot of misinformation floating out there. When I ran for office in 2017, I promised transparency, integrity, and honesty. I told you that I would always communicate within the legal bounds of what I could and keep you informed. As you know, in a legal case, it is confidential and cannot be shared until the case is resolved. I thank the public for your patience, as I know that it is a tough situation for the town to endure. Rest assured that I've had my fingers on the pulse of this throughout the entire process. However, the process just had to run its course and let things happen the way they do. It took time for this process to get clarity on these issues, as well as consensus from most of the defendants, as well as bringing the council together. This all began through an election process in 2019 when Mr. Schmidt was running for re-election. He had opposition. This opposition did include opponents, but others in the town who did not want him for re-election. I will not belabor you on this point, except for the fact that in addition to the public opposition, the more important than Mr. Schmidt's family was being brought into this entire process. In addition, negative things were being said about his wife, his son, his mother-in-law. They were being harassed online, at school, at church, at the grocery store, and by U.S. mail. With hateful statements and he never made these comments or these issues public and supported his family the best he could. Approximately 2 weeks prior to the election, during that break, council was meeting. Negative statements were being stated about his integrity. Were made to him by another individual in a hallway as he exited the restroom. As he passed through a doorway, he saw Ms. Hawksworth and expressed his frustration in a reaction he was told by another individual who both knew that they both knew. It was a brief encounter and between two adult individuals, and they moved on. Ms. Hawksworth then pursued a complaint against Mr. Schmidt, and an investigation was conducted. Our previous legal firm, the investigation concluded with no wrongdoing. Mr. Schmidt occurred as stated politically at the town meetings in June. Per the town's previous attorney, the council had the choice to accept these findings, close the investigation, or to continue. After close of session and meeting that evening, the council came back in and voted for sanctions on Mr. Schmidt, barring him from attending 3 regular council meetings and making an apology to his behavior in the hallway, at which he was respectfully complied with. Some wanted to make this issue and wanted to make an issue that Mr. Schmidt could not attend an ad hoc committee that he was on, or an event, or even set foot in town hall. As a citizen of this town, Mr. Schmidt had every right to visit town hall as a citizen, as every other citizen can. He served his sanction without complaint. The public negativity unfortunately continued. It appeared that through the discussions had been made that Mr. Schmidt respectfully complied and did not complain the harassment against him continued. He consulted an attorney as he knew that his rights had been violated. The attorney requested that all harassment and negative comments against Mr. Schmidt cease and desist, or a lawsuit would ensue. Unfortunately, again, there were those that would not respect or comply with the request that he made in good faith. Negative comments continued. At the end of September 10th council meeting, 2 council members spoke out negatively about Mr. Schmidt getting argumentative with me and publicly at the dais. It was apparent that they did not want Mr. Schmidt to return or being seated back at town council the following week. Outbursts that were recorded on town video and were more intense in public than Mr. Schmidt's minor frustration back in April. At this point, Mr. Schmidt had no other recourse but to file a lawsuit. During all this time, in consultation with his attorney, Mr. Schmidt made the decision to sue based on denial of due process. A right afforded to every citizen in the United States Constitution. This right were violated in not given the opportunity to represent himself in the 2019 proceedings. He was denied his constitutional rights as an elected official to represent his constituents. Per state law, in section 21, subchapter B, county judge can remove a council member from office. The only few specific reasons why while in performance of their official duties, not on a break and not on a sidebar conversation. 2 city council have no legal right, the town council had no legal right to remove Mr. Schmidt from office at that time. No one wanted the lawsuit, especially Mr. Schmidt, based on continued negative and accusations made against him. Mr. Schmidt had advance notice and continued public official non-compliance and had no alternative but to sue the town's several individuals as defendants. His intent from the beginning was not for monetary gain. It was far from it. All was asked was that he be made whole again. There was never going to be any cost to the town or to the taxpayers of any money, and the liability coverage through TML. His only ask that he wanted harassment to stop and possible legal fees. The $500,000 figure that was put on the intentional filing documents turned out to be a figure that just needed to be put on legal documents for the filing process. Never was this ever to be a profit for Mr. Schmidt. The entire situation is spun out of control, with the people making statements that had no basis or fact due to being uninformed. They sought to pursue wrongful, negative atmosphere that existed prior to 2019 in an effort to discredit Mr. Schmidt's good name and to remove him from the council. They perpetuated negative statements about him and his family, including his young son. An unconstitutional act by a reasonable standard. The original incident, in my opinion, was a minor disagreement between 2 adult individuals that could have been settled with a private meeting and an understanding. There have been pro-development forces in this town There are pro-development forces in this town that lost elections in 2019 and 2017. This is an uncanny parallel to what is going on at our federal level right now. As you recall, there have been developments that have been approved in this town prior to 2017, such as Waterbrook, the Lakes, 5T, and Avalon. That is what stirred up so much discontent and discord throughout the town that change was sought throughout the council. We would just wanted the best for our town and its character as best we can. The reason why most of us moved here. It's why the public was so overwhelming elected us. You wanted change. Argyle is a very special, unique place. We wanted to grow in this community, and we wanted to live here, and we wanted to stay here. Intentional plan. We are not against growth. We are not against change, but we want intentional, planned change, citizen-focused, caring about what we moved here for and protecting it forever. My fervent hopes is that all factions in this town can come together, put away negative speak, negative desires, and negative comments, and try to get back to the work of the people. I promised in 2017 and 2019, I promised integrity, transparency, and honesty in my leadership. My hope is that everyone does the same in the positive cooperation and manner, and the negativity and posturing on both sides will stop. Let's go on and do the work of the citizens and do the work of this town like we're supposed to do. Thank you. If no one has any other comments at this time.
Mayor, I do. So, I had no idea you were gonna write this novel about Ron, but I love that you said your transparency and honesty. And I wonder why you left out an entire chapter about Ron and his bullying of the town manager. It's interesting that nothing negative is said about a man who victimizes other people, but yet he's the victim. So I just want to be real clear about that.
I was in that meeting. There was no bullying. There was no.
You told him to
complaint
settle down and
made.
sit down. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Both of them. They were
So
both yelling.
here's my point. I appreciate your novel. I want to make sure that the town is aware that our attorney has emphasized that all features of this lawsuit are available to the public, and let the public just decide for themselves.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anybody else? At this time, it is 9:50. We'll stand adjourned.